Now then, Lisa Fearn's going to be here in a minute in our midweek for our midweek menu, and she's going to be making roasted rhubarb cobbler. Our first question will be, what's a cobbler? But do you remember long ago you used to go to your grandmother's house and she would stew the life out of rhubarb with loads of sugar and then let it cool down, and you'd have it with evaporated milk. Oh, that was nice, wasn't it? And of course, the obligatory bread and butter to go with it. I love rhubarb. I think it's one of those Marmite fruit, isn't it? You either like it or you don't. Is it a fruit? Is it veg? I don't know. It's very delicious. Now, Lisa's going to be here with 2 courses for us in a few moments. But first, I am very pleased to say that we have just jumped into our virtual kitchen for our midweek menu because every Wednesday the best chefs in the land share their recipes with us, bringing some inspiration to our dinner plates and what to have for tea. Oh, this week Lisa Fearn from the Pumpkin Patch Kitchen and Garden at a shed in Carmarthen is with us. Shwmae, Lisa.
Shwmae.
And it is, isn't it? It's such a pain to think of what can we have for tea.
It is, and the problem is, even when you're dealing with food all of the time, it's still a problem for us as well.
Isn't it weird? Well, you are very, very busy because, yes, you've got your Pumpkin Patch Kitchen and Garden, you've got the shed, and I saw you the other day in Eregin in Carmarthen.
You did indeed. Yes, we've got a cafe in Carmarthen town, and more recently, I think, almost a year actually, last April, we opened in the SOC headquarters at Eregin.
Great, so you are just chock-a-block.
Well, I have staff.
You have staff.
That does help.
I know, but somebody has to look after them.
Yes, I know.
And how are things in the pumpkin patch at the moment?
Really good, actually. Yes, we're sort of getting back into it slowly. I must say, we had a slow, obviously we were locked down during the COVID months and lockdowns, but now we're back at it. We had to concentrate a lot on the shops, the cafes for a short while, but then more recently now the workshops are back and up and running for adults and children and little ones. It's all good fun.
Absolutely lovely. I mean, I follow you on Instagram and it's lovely what you do there. So will you have Easter workshops for kids now? Yes. And what will they be doing?
All sorts of things, from sweet things like icing biscuits for the very small ones and making Easter nets, the traditional sort of typical Easter bakes. But then for the older ones, things like stuffed chicken breast, like we're going to do this afternoon.
Lovely.
Just good family wholesome meals. Right. Things that they can, they're not necessarily complicated recipes, things they'll remember for the rest of their lives, hopefully, and when they become students maybe later on, that they'll be able to go to the kitchen and cook with confidence.
And what kind of adults do you have come into your workshops? I mean, are they good home cooks or are they novices, or have you, what kind of clientele have you got there?
It's a complete wide range, to be honest, because obviously some are competent cooks, others are competent with maybe savoury foods but not with the baking, the cakes and the breads. Some people are very interested in the bread making, men especially interested in baking bread.
It's funny, sourdough. Isn't it, how that's become a male thing, but when you think about bakers, most of them are male, are they?
They are.
Would you think?
It's a very male-dominated industry, yes, definitely, especially on the chefing side. But we're glad to say that we're primarily a female-run business. I think we're probably 50-50, but the kitchen is primarily female-led.
And the lockdown, of course, made us all very interested in cooking. And I think the banana loaf market was booming, wasn't it, at the time?
It certainly was.
And bread the same. And sourdough seemed to just take everybody's fancy, didn't it?
It certainly did. And we started making sourdough because we had time, didn't we? That's the thing. Sourdough is a longish process. It takes 2 days, really, to get a decent loaf.
Yeah.
But every day when you make a sourdough, you have what we call a discard. There's something that you have to get rid of because otherwise you end up with a lot of your mother dough.
Yeah.
And so we were giving those away. We were putting them on the doorstep and saying, there's about 6 or 7 today if you want to come and get them. And so cars would just randomly pull up, collect their little pot of sourdough, and off they went.
Do you know what? I mean, for all its tragedy, at lockdown and COVID, I mean, it was a horrible time, but also it did inspire people to just be kind and nice again, didn't it?
It did. It brought communities together.
Yeah.
Even though we weren't together, we were aware of each other, and we knew that there was definitely a community feel, wasn't there, and looking out for each other.
And there's something lovely about all that bread making and baking and not because you couldn't go and get your fast food or you couldn't dine out, and that those meals with the family around the table all started happening again, didn't they?
Well, definitely. And for me, we had our children home, and I think possibly that will have been the longest time we'll have been together, because I have 5 children, same as you, I think.
Yeah.
5, yeah?
Yeah.
And we were together for weeks, weren't we? Months on end. And I don't think, that was a luxury in a way.
Yeah.
It was a tragic time.
Of course.
I'm not taking away from that, but it was a chance that we had to stay together as an older family, because my children are sort of 20 plus now.
Yeah.
But we were together and with the other halves very often as well. So it was an amazing time.
Lovely. It's very old-fashioned, very Italian, actually, isn't it? And how do you decide what you want to do in your masterclasses? I mean, because again, thinking about what to have for tea, how do you decide this is what we're going to do today?
We try and be seasonal always. So any vegetables or fruit that we use, we try and either harvest it from the garden if we have enough, or we look at what's available. Also what's affordable. For instance, tomatoes at the moment are not only out of season in this country, but even if they're imported, the prices are going astronomically high. So we would avoid all those sort of things. We want to make things affordable and available to people, and also to encourage a sustainable way of living, really, to use what's available on your doorstep, and also what people are interested in. There's no point putting something really complicated on our menu if people aren't interested. For Easter, a few weeks ago, we just concentrated on the Battenberg cake. So it's just something different, and sometimes something different grabs certain individuals, but then something else will grab somebody else, and it's a nice gift for somebody as well. They can,
definitely.
It's different.
Yeah. We're going to be learning how to make something really tasty, 2 really tasty dishes in a while now, but we'll have some messages and then we'll get on to some cooking, okay? Caryl here on BBC Radio Wales, and Lisa Fearn is with me, and she's about to tell us how to make the first course in our virtual kitchen today. So what have we got? What are you going to make for us?
Well, it's going to be a rolled stuffed chicken breast. Right. So, I mean, for me, it's wonderful because I absolutely adore stuffing.
Yes.
It's the best part of a roast dinner for me. It's the extras, it's the Yorkshire pudding, it's the stuffing, it's all those extras. So we would start off by making a stuffing. And it can be your normal traditional stuffing, or you can pimp it up a little bit.
Okay. So how do you... I don't think I've ever made stuffing.
Oh,
because I'm a sucker for the box stuff.
Well, do you know what? If you haven't made your own stuffing, you really must.
I haven't lived. Okay.
Oh, it's a different league altogether, and it's so simple.
Okay.
So I've got a recipe here. I've put 5 slices of stale bread. Doesn't have to be stale. Very often you can't get stale bread, but obviously if you've got some left over, or what I recommend people do is if they get a new loaf and they've got a few slices left or a chunk left, freeze it, or make it into breadcrumbs and freeze the breadcrumbs.
Right, okay.
So that's half the process done then. You've got your breadcrumbs ready. And homemade breadcrumbs are very different. Don't buy the panko breadcrumbs. It's not the same, because you want something that's a little bit more sumpus, we'd say in Welsh, a little bit more chunky, to absorb the moisture from the leeks or the onions and maybe the juices from the meat as well, so that it becomes, really full of flavour. So you need breadcrumbs, half a bowl, let's say. And then what I tend to do, I take an onion or leek, whatever I've got left over in the fridge. I'm very much one to use what you've got. Don't go out and buy something specific unless you need to. Yeah. So if you've got half an onion or half a leek, or a leek that needs using up because it's looking a little bit sad.
Or half an onion or half a leek.
Yeah, perfect.
Right,
perfect. Okay. Yeah, because the leek gives a little bit of sweetness. The onion gives that, that hit.
The punch.
The punch, yes. So I would chop those up finely and I'd fry them in a little bit of oil and butter.
Nice.
The butter makes a big difference.
Yes,
it really
always.
Just the smells in the room instantly transformed.
Yeah.
So you've got your nicely not browned, just cooked until they're translucent onion and leek. Add it to your breadcrumbs, and then to that you can do what you like. I use thyme. A lot of people use sage. You could use fresh parsley. Basically, herbs.
A herb of your choice.
A herb of your choice.
Okay.
And then that is your stuffing. That is a basic stuffing. Salt and pepper to season.
Right.
And then you can go sort of off-piste a little bit. I like to add dried fruit, so I add chopped apricots.
Oh, lovely.
A bit of sweetness, a little bit of chew, and then maybe some almonds or some pecan nuts. Finely chop them. That adds a little bit of crunch.
Texture.
Yes, texture.
That sounds lovely. I'm going to try that, Lisa.
You could go cranberry root at Christmas time. Any dried fruits that you've got, even currants and raisins, really, really nice.
Okay.
to that then you've now got a dry stuffing. To use that, you can cook it as it is for a roast dinner, but if you want to make it into something, you need some moisture. So I add 1 egg and a drop of cream or a drop of milk.
Okay.
And that makes it a sticky, malleable stuffing.
Yeah, gotcha.
Because what we want to do is fill a chicken breast. So if you've got dry breadcrumbs stuffing, it's going to go everywhere. Yeah. So now we've made our stuffing and it's good to go. You take a chicken breast or a chicken thigh, a boned chicken thigh, and pop it on some cling film.
Yes.
Open it up. It doesn't matter whether you do a tidy job or an untidy job. Nobody knows at the end of the day. Take a sharp knife, pop your hand over the chicken breast and slice it through to butterfly it.
All right, okay, yes. Because they can be quite thick, those chicken breasts, can't they?
They can. And of course, by doing this, then you're going to have, or at least reduce hugely, the time it takes to cook, because it's not going to be a thick, dense piece of chicken.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to open it fully, you can just create a little hole in the middle, like a little cave in the middle, and that's where you're going to pop your stuffing.
Okay, gotcha.
So you stuff
a little pocket.
A little pocket, yes.
Okay.
Yes. So then you take some of your stuffing. Now, the important thing to remember here is if you're not going to use all of the stuffing up in this one meal, don't transfer what I call chicken hands to the stuffing and back, because you're going to cross-contaminate the stuffing with chicken juices, and that's not a good thing.
No, it's not. Always wash your hands if there's a chicken in the kitchen.
Yes, or use a spoon to take the stuffing onto the chicken breast, and don't let the handle of the spoon touch the stuffing.
Yeah.
Once you've done that, you can... I should have said, sorry, if you're going to use ham or streaky bacon, you can pop that underneath the chicken breast. So you've got your cling film, your bacon, your chicken breast, and now your stuffing, and then you can use the cling film to tease the whole thing round into a roll.
Okay.
So you're then going to so you're closing up your chicken breast. The bacon is surrounding it, and you can roll that up in the cling film, and that then is perfect to store in the fridge until you need to cook it.
Wow, great!
So you've got
easy.
Visitors. Yeah, easy, and you can pop those in a container. 2, 3, 4, 5 of them in a container. Pop them in the fridge. Bottom shelf if you can, and leave them until you want to cook. So say you've got visitors coming for Sunday lunch, you can do this Saturday afternoon, pop them in the fridge,
and they'll be fine.
And they'll be fine. And then you've got all the hard work is done, and then you can just take them out, pop them in the oven for 30 minutes. Perfect.
And
done.
That's it. And what would you have then? Just veg and potatoes and a little bit of jus?
Roast vegetables,
aka gravy.
And the nice thing about this is, if you put some foil over the top to cook them, maybe add a drop of stock into the bottom as they cook.
Yes.
When you take them out, because I tend to serve these sliced, it's still quite a solid piece of meat and stuffing. So if you slice them sort of on the slant, maybe 1 centimetre or 2 centimetres across, you can serve 2 or 3 slices or 4 or 5 slices, depending on your appetite. You're left with juices in the bottom. Drop of cider into that, maybe a drop of cream. Just let it reduce down, and you've got a lovely creamy cider gravy.
Oh, that sounds gorgeous. Right, that's enough dribbling for now, okay? We'll have some travel and then we'll go on to pudding. Is that okay? That sounds amazing. Thank you very much, Lisa. You're listening to BBC Radio Wales with me, Caryl Parry Jones, and Lisa Fearn from the Pumpkin Patch Kitchen and Garden at a shed in Carmarthen, also available in Yr Egin. Aren't you?
Not today, I'm not.
In Carmarthen, no, you're here today. And you're sharing your recipes. We've just had a stuffed chicken breast, and it sounded lovely. What are we having for pudding?
Well, we're going to have something seasonal. We're going to have a roast rhubarb cobbler. Rhubarb, one of my favourites.
Oh, gosh, I was just saying, it's a childhood's comfort food, if ever there was one, isn't there? What's the difference, though, between a crumble, a cobbler, a dumpling pudding? They're all kind of the same, but not.
They're all very hearty and delicious, is what they are. They're all very similar. Basically, it's a combination of flour, butter and sugar on top of a fruity base.
Right, okay.
So we've gone with rhubarb, but it could equally be apple or apple and rhubarb, or, going back to what I said earlier, whatever you've got going over in the fruit bowl. Right. Slice it up. It doesn't matter whether you're putting apple with blackberries and that's another good thing. Before this year's season, new crops, good to empty the freezer of last year's.
Yes.
So if you've got the odd red currant, pot or some blackberries or gooseberries left over, now's a good time to clear them out to make space and then start again this year. Okay. Otherwise, your freezers become so cluttered, don't they?
Oh,
with
they
sort
do.
Of loads of stuff.
Absolutely.
So we're going to go with rhubarb, and I'm devastated.
Why?
My rhubarb has disappeared.
Oh,
I don't
no.
know. I don't know. I've had it for years. I even brought it from my old house because I love rhubarb. And I went to the patch and I looked this couple of weeks ago, and I thought, there's nothing growing. So I don't know whether it got too damp or whatever. But anyway, you can buy it, but it isn't cheap.
No, it's not.
And at the moment, it's the forced stuff. So it's the very lovely, tender and pink rhubarb. But obviously, in a few weeks' time, we'll have it in the garden. It's a lot bigger, it's a lot chunkier, much cheaper, obviously.
Of course, yeah.
And I've got a tip for making it nice and red for you, just like the forced stuff.
Okay, right then. So, crumble, the cobbler, so they're like little scones, I suppose, on top of the rhubarb, are they?
Very much so. So for a crumble, it would be much looser, a lot more sugar, and you don't compact it together like a scone.
Yes.
These is a very similar mixture. So I've got here 250 grams of self-raising flour. Obviously, self-raising is going to make it nice and spongy.
Right. Yeah.
Plain flour with baking powder will do the job. And then about half of that, so 120 grams of butter or margarine. So if you wanted, for instance, to make this non-dairy, you could use margarine. A lot of the margarines in the shop these days are vegan.
Okay.
So they do not contain dairy, and that's worth remembering because there are a lot of people out there who don't need dairy.
Yep.
And then some brown sugar. I say brown because it's better for you. I know it's sweet, but it's still got more nutrition than white sugar. It adds a bit of texture and colour. And then we're going to bring it together with 1 egg.
Okay.
And that's simple. If it's still a little bit dry, add a little drop of milk, a non-dairy milk if you're not wanting to make it dairy, and then you just make them into little scones. I wouldn't roll it out and cut. I would just make them into little balls.
Patties.
Yeah, with your hands.
Yeah, okay.
But before you do that, useful thing to do, pop your rhubarb in the oven. Now, a lot of people stew their rhubarb and it becomes very
mushy.
If you want to keep some texture, cut them into little lengths, maybe 5 centimetre, 2 inch lengths of rhubarb, line them up in a tray and add a little drop of orange juice to keep them nice and moist. And this is the tip to keep them nice and pink, or to make them pink even if they're from the garden, grenadine, which is a pomegranate syrup.
Wow.
You often get it in the cocktail aisle in the supermarket.
Yes.
And you can just add a little drizzle of that over the top. It adds a colour and it also adds sweetness.
Well, you cheeky monkey, Lisa Fearn. That's amazing.
We do think of rhubarb, don't we? It's only the edges that are red or pinky, but it's nice to have that little bit of pink. So, so we add a little bit of grenadine on top and a bit of sugar, of course, because it is a tart. And in fact, it's a vegetable.
It is a vegetable, is it? Yes, okay.
Yes, and don't be tempted to eat the leaves either. They're not so good for you.
No. But once you've got rid of those, you've got a treasure of a thing, haven't you?
You have. And they're very high in water, so they do not take long to cook. So don't pop them in the oven and walk away for an hour. Leave them for maybe 6-7 minutes maximum, I would say.
Okay.
And once you can pop a sharp tip of a knife into them and you go through, they're ready.
So as long as they're al dente?
Yes, yes. Because they're also going to be cooked again, don't forget, because we're going to put the cobbler on top.
Of course, yes.
The scone mixture on top.
Gotcha.
So once you've done that, you can keep it in the same tin. You can then add. You'll need a fair amount of it, so you might also want to add a bit of stewed apple to bulk it up a little bit. Okay. And you could even add any spare other fruit, berries, blueberries.
How about frozen berries?
Yeah, perfectly fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Even, believe it or not, smoothie mixes. You can buy fruit for smoothies these days. It is just dried fruit, so you can just add those.
Yeah, great.
Then you add your little balls of dough on top, and you just pop it in the oven for 20 to 30 minutes.
And that's it.
And that's it.
And it's delicious.
Yes. And what happens is the juices should, provided you've got enough juice in there, they'll bubble up through, and it'll become slightly soggy in the bottom, nice and crispy on top.
And what would you have with that then? Please say custard.
I think you'd want custard. Ice cream, creme fraiche. Fresh yoghurt is undervalued, I think. Fresh yoghurt, so much more nutrition in fresh yoghurt than, for instance, a creme fraiche. So, a good yoghurt, and you can sweeten it with a little bit of honey. Nothing wrong with that, or even a little bit of vanilla essence in there, extract in there, and you can flavour up your yoghurt. So that's a nice alternative.
And there's some lovely Greek yoghurts out there now, which if you look for the authentic one rather than Greek style yoghurt, and even the fat-free ones are lovely and creamy, aren't they? Yeah,
and that's the thing, not the Greek style. The Greek style might not be a live yoghurt, but of course for gut microbiome, it's the live cultures of yoghurt that are really good for the health as well. So you can have pudding and health.
Oh, that is absolutely amazing, and that sounds lovely. It's another one to try, isn't it? And if you don't like rhubarb, because like I said, it is very much a Marmite vegetable, isn't it? You can use anything you like. That's fantastic.
Use a base of apple maybe, and add all those extra, the strawberries, raspberries, blueberries, whatever you've got left over. I would even throw a banana in, quite honestly.
Oh yeah,
sliced. Why not?
Why not? The rules are there are no rules.
There are no rules.
Yes. What's next for you then? What have you got coming up apart from your workshops?
What have I got coming up? I've got a few days off actually, which is going to be really nice. Hoping to get the garden up and sorted. I've dug that over last week.
That's the other thing. Your garden is a sight to behold as well, isn't it?
Well, it wasn't last week. It's looking better this week.
Yeah.
There's some nice fine weather. It's a bit chillier today, I've noticed, but that nice sunshine was great for a good chance to weed the garden, dig it over.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping to get to some garden centres. I've ordered my seeds, get that up and started. The grass always needs cutting from now on, doesn't it? But
definitely. I'm going to have to get my old man to to get his lawnmower out, because there's nothing worse than a shabby lawn, is there? You know, and it makes everything look horrible, doesn't it? Any gardening tips for growing, say, soft fruit to put in our cobbler?
Well, my main gardening tip is grow what you eat. Don't start growing things you're not going to eat. You know, if you don't like beetroot, don't grow beetroot. Same goes for rhubarb. But and grow what you like, and also grow what's expensive to buy. You know, certain things. I love the Anya or pink fir apple potato, but and they are so, well, if you can get them, they're expensive. Much more expensive than your bog standard, you know, roasting or chipping potato. So I grow things that I don't want to afford, basically, in the shops. And
because it can get expensive, especially these days when, you know, you can buy a bag of chopped onions and you think, I can't be bothered to chop an onion tonight. And really, I mean, that's terribly lazy. I made a casserole last night and had to use some onions that were, you know, left over from last week. And it didn't take me more than 2 minutes. I didn't cry or anything. So, and they're expensive, aren't they? And, you know, these little tubs of melon and tubs of mango and what have you. Yeah.
I think a nice tip, if you like buying those ready-made or ready-chopped or ready-prepared things, take half an hour and prepare them, pop them in the fridge, and then when you come to wanting a pot of grapes with mango or strawberries, you can just grab your own pot. You've made it yourself.
Yes.
A friend of mine actually spends half an hour, I think a month, just, listen to this, peeling garlic and popping them in oil in the fridge. Now that sounds like an awful half an hour, but I bet she puts a good podcast on or listens to you on the radio, and half an hour flies by, and then she's got her garlic chopped for the month.
There's nothing more boring than undressing your garlic, is there? Hey, it's been lovely talking to you, and 2 fantastic recipes there as well. And if you'd like Lisa's amazing recipes, all you have to do is send an email to Benaz. That's benaz@bbc.co.uk. We've got a rolled stuffed chicken breast and a rhubarb cobbler with custard. Nice to see you. Diolch yn fawr iawn, Lisa.
Croeso.
Okay.